Please join me in welcoming Dr. Karyne Rabey.
So I'm sitting in a medical clinic across a 47-year-old man who looks perfectly healthy to me. I have no idea what he's doing here. And frankly, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I'm not a clinician. I'm not even a neuroscientist. I've never even took a neuroscience class in my entire life. So I feel like the biggest fraud. I'm actually an anthropologist, and I'm the happiest when I'm in the middle of the jungle digging up just really old monkey bones. Basically, if you mix Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park, that's exactly how I spent my summers. Okay, sure, there was a lot more dead bones, not a whole lot of adventures, but still. But then in 2020, there was this pandemic, and I was no longer allowed to travel. During that time, a colleague of mine asked me if I wanted to come and hang out with him at the clinic. So I did. And that's when I met this 47-year-old man. So to break the awkward silence between us as I was waiting for a nerve scientist to actually come and check him out, I asked him, "Why are you here?" He tells me that 17 years ago, he had a snowmobile accident, and he tore all the nerves going from his neck to his arm. From what I can tell, he looks healthy and strong. He even tells me he works out and he's fully back at work. But even though his muscles are fully functioning after all these years, he tells me that he's broken his humerus at least half a dozen times. I don't get it. My understanding is that as long as you stay active, you work out, pull those muscles on those bones, your bones will stay strong. Personally, I take this very seriously, especially as a woman who doesn't want her bones to become brittle and osteoporotic with age. Everything I know about bones, and that's my specialty, so I should know, tells me that what this man is telling me just couldn't be true. I go back to my colleague, and we decide to order a DEXA scan. This type of imaging is the same technology we use in older women to check for bone fragility and osteoporosis. These scans, honestly, are really cool. They take a couple minutes, they only cost like $100, unlike thousands for MRI, and they have almost no radiation, and they'll tell me everything I need to know about your bones. And as a bonus, they even tell me about your muscle and fat content. So here's what a typical DEXA scan looks like, and if I zoom in on the humerus, a bone that is healthy will appear dense and dark. In an older person, let's say they have osteoporosis, the bone will be a little bit more grayish, a lot less dense. And then, when I looked at my 47-year-old patient, I could literally see through his arm. His bone was so transparent. But he wasn't the only one. It wasn't only him. I talked to my colleague, and he identified 30 other patients that had the same clinical profile. When we scanned these patients, we got the exact same results, no matter their age or their sex. How is this even possible? I became obsessed with this question. I had to figure it out. So, unlike everybody else that's talking about brains and nerves, I'm going to talk to you about bones. If you want to know about bones, you're going to look it up in an anatomy textbook. And it doesn't matter which textbook you choose, the story is always the same. Unlike the bones, the dead ones I used to dig up, your bones are very much alive and they're always changing. And the way that's happening, well, you have some immature bone cells that are basically building your strong bony scaffold. And then if your body needs minerals, let's say you just did that workout and you need to feed your muscles, well, those mature bone cells that are living in your bones, they're called osteocytes, and they'll signal for another cell that's called osteoclasts. And now osteoclasts, they live in your blood, and they only come to your bone when they're called upon to break down that bony matrix and then release the good nutrients into the bloodstream. So because of that, your bones are filled with blood vessels, and that makes sure that you maintain that nice little balance. Anyone notice what's not in this diagram? Remember, all our patients had nerve damage. So what roles do nerves play when, according to these diagrams, they're not even there? What am I not seeing here? So I go back to the lab and I decide to just look at bones. I cut them up. First thing I see are those blood vessels. Then I decide to stain for nerves. And what I find is pretty wild. Not only is there nerves surrounding all of your bones, those are the ones that hurt when you break a bone. There's also a nerve that is paired with every single one of those blood vessels I mentioned. And even more interesting, there are nerves that are traveling independently all throughout your bones, and they have a really close relationship with those osteocytes. How funny is it that what seemed to be missing from those brittle, almost dead bones of the patients that I saw was something I didn't even know bones even had in the first place? Okay, so now I know that bones are filled with nerves. So why would nerve damage lead to fragility? Well, finding the answer to this question is now my new passion. And what we found so far is that when we sever the connection with the nervous system, the bone becomes brittle, fragile, and basically dies. This may help explain why the patient I was seeing in that medical clinic kept breaking his arm. No matter how much physio you do, no matter how strong you are, if there's no nerves, the bone is no longer a living organ. The good news, though, is that by understanding this pathway, we now have the ability to design new treatments that could target this miscommunication. And one of the coolest things we found in the lab is that the nerves have a receptor for a bone protein that is made by osteoblasts called osteocalcin. This protein is supposed to help you build your bone stronger, but it looks like it may even help you grow your nerves. So I have a whole lot more to do. There's a lot more research that needs to be done to figure out the relationship between bones and nerves, but one thing is for sure, it is a more vibrant and dynamic process than has ever been described in those textbooks. I still feel like an imposter every day, but it turns out that I left digging up dead bones in the jungle, and I discovered the dead bones in the clinic. And now I'm working with a team to try and bring them back to life. Thank you.